Hello and welcome to the Prison Officer Podcast. Today I have a acquaintance from LinkedIn. I haven't met him in person yet, but we've talked on LinkedIn, and I've been following him for a long time because of his motivation and his a lot of his views on leadership. So I reached out and asked him if he'd come on the podcast here, and he agreed. So I'm really happy to have Associate Warden Warden Fredericks. He has 3 decades of experience working in corrections and has worked at 11 institutions in 6 different states for 5 different agencies, which is just amazing. So he began his career as a jailer in Fort Worth, Texas, then became a correctional officer with the state of Florida before hiring on with the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons, where I also worked. Associate Warden Fredericks assumed positions of greater responsibility throughout his moves and most recently served as the Associate Warden of Operations at Broad River Correctional Institution. He's a graduate of NIC's Leadership and Development for the Future and has recently completed the Warden Exchange program as a cohort, and I'm going to ask him some more about that as we get going. But welcome to the Prison Officer Podcast, Warden.
Well, thank you very much. I consider it truthfully a privilege to be on here. Like I said, I've been asked before and have been hesitant, and this just seemed like the right fit, and I'm glad you had me, Mike.
Excellent. I'm glad to have you here. So I start these interviews out the same way, and I'd kind of like to hear how you grew up and, what your life was like coming up as a kid and into high school and stuff, and then we'll go from there.
That's a good way to start. I'm a big Steve Covey fan, and I believe that you're the way that you grew up forms your paradigm and the way you perceive the world. So I think it's a great question. Well, I'm originally from New York. I was equally raised in New York and Texas, Fort Worth, Texas to be exact. I come from a single parent family. My father raised me on his own, and during the early 70s, that was a real oddity. Matter of fact, I was one of the few kids probably in any of my schools whose parents were divorced, and I think I was the only one that was raised by a father. So and I will say I had an amazing childhood. Growing up
Cool.
I was actually in West Babylon, Long Island. People knew my father was raising me by himself and wasn't a really good cook. So subsequently, I was invited to a different household every night, and it was just an amazing experience. Probably within a 15-block area, I ate at everybody's home, and it was just a great way to grow up. Moved to Texas in '79, and started my high school experience in Texas, and it was literally like moving to Mayberry. It was just an
Oh.
amazing experience.
Mm-hmm. So
Um,
high school. What'd you do in high school? Sports?
I played football and I ran track. I was an average, really an average athlete. But again, I had a real amazing experience because again, because my father was raising me by himself. I was welcomed into every home. I visited and attended every church that exists in the state of Texas. It was just a really good. Like I said, I tried to explain it to my wife. Because it was just a really rich way to grow up because I got to be in many different households. I felt a lot of love. You had parents there that cheered for me just as equally as they cheered for their own children when I played sports. So
Nice.
it was a really neat experience, and I don't hesitate to say I was very poor. My father was a machinist, and
Mm-hmm.
we I never realized I was poor because I felt I had a really rich upbringing, but I was on free lunch at school till I graduated. From the time I started school till I graduated high school, and
Sure.
it was just a like I said, my wife doesn't hesitate to point it out to me all the time. But I really never knew I was poor. But like I said, my father was a machinist, and he literally worked from the time he got up in the morning. The sun wasn't out, and he came home after the sun had went down. He actually did that his whole life. Matter of fact, he worked himself to death. Actually, he died
Yeah.
very early from that effort. But
Oh yeah.
like I said, it was, I had an amazing experience, and I went to North Texas State for a period of time. So it was, like I said, the Texas experience, I have to say, was really amazing. It was like growing up in that movie that used to be on Friday Night Lights. The
Uh,
town that I lived in was actually that real experience. It was almost like a documentary.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the part that I always find really interesting because I talk to people about how they grew up, and everybody's got a little different story. How'd you make that step into corrections? You know?
Well, well, here's the thing. I had been explorer. I had been I don't remember if it was police or sheriff. It was in Keller, Texas. I was an explorer, and at one time earlier I was actually in Yavapai County, which is part of upstate Arizona. But anyway, that I had basically a small experience into law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed it, but I will tell you, the just like a lot of us, I wasn't moved by the money, and we were anticipating our first daughter, and my rationale was, I need something where I'm not going to be laid off. I'm just going to tell
Right.
you, that's honestly how I started. I said, I need something where I can do this for the longevity of my children's life, so I can supply an income for them. And then, of course, as we all do, it grew into a really great experience. The relationships you
Sure.
built were amazing. Going to work every day, it turned out to be, it's I tell everybody when I speak, still to this day, I was always drew to work. I was drawn to work. I was never
Mm-hmm.
pushed to work.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I think that's a common experience for a lot of us. Benefits, and I was talking to a lady the other day. She was talking about single mothers, and I think that's a big draw for single mothers these days because they can go to work in corrections and get a full range of benefits starting off, and having
Yeah,
the opportunity to work different shifts, which sometimes for a single parent is a plus.
that is amazing. Yes, you're right. Especially when we see
Yeah,
that with our staff a lot.
yeah, yeah. So where'd you start work at
I start
as
off.
a correction?
I was a jailer at the time when I started. The position wasn't referred to as corrections. I was a jailer. I believe it was
Mm-hmm.
jailer two, and that was for the Tarrant County Sheriff's Department. I worked in a what had been an old meat packing plant, which had been turned into a jail. It was called Green Bay Unit, and I just had it was just a really, it was just a really good experience. I enjoyed it. I especially now, as I look back, as you tour people into prisons and those gates start closing behind you,
Mm-hmm.
you can see their face change. You can see their expressions change. A little bit of tension in their neck, even, and I
Yeah.
have to say, I never had that. It was a very it was a very enjoyable experience going to work, and being locked behind all those doors never really had an effect on me. So I really liked it from the very beginning, and I enjoyed. When I was in Tarrant County, I was under really good leadership, and it was a good way to get started.
You think that was part of the reason why it wasn't as much of a change for you was because of the leadership and the people you were working with at the time? That you
I would
felt
agree with
comfortable when
it.
you walked in?
I really would have to say too, because you took the county test just like anywhere else, and that determined if you were on a list or if you've got the job. So we basically all came in with limited, just your classroom instruction. So it wasn't like I had a whole lot of experience, but it really, yeah, the leadership there, was really good. It was, and again, it was a really good experience. Going in every day, the shifts we worked, we had a very good bond. We had a camaraderie, and it was very similar to what you had experienced, like as an being a member of an athletic team.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and was it a rough jail? Did you have a lot of stuff going on in there?
Well, at that time, it was. Well, I mean, now if
Yeah,
you look back, it was probably average. But
right.
we did a lot of. I was involved in from everything from intake to actually working in the pods or the housing units as well. So
Yeah,
you ran the gamut when you came to work there.
yeah. That builds those bonds too. When you guys are having to deal with stuff
Oh
on a pretty
yes.
regular basis. Yeah. So next you went to state of Florida. What made you make that move?
Again, it was a necessity. We were gonna anticipating having my first daughter, and we were
Mm-hmm.
gonna move closer to family. Family. My wife had family in Jacksonville, and I actually
Okay.
had the privilege. In my bio, I kind of leave it out, but it was I had experience to work for the state of Florida, and I was also with JSO, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, for a period of time too. But
Okay.
it was I can say that was, as far as working experiences, probably one of the most enjoyable I ever had working for the state of Florida, and probably the least paid at the time. Um,
Yeah.
it, the academy, I believe, was 14 or 16 weeks. It was incredible, and to date, it
Hmm.
was literally one of the best experiences I went to. It was an extremely well ran academy. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
hands-on. I believe I went to the academy in Olustee, Florida, and you actually went to work every day at a small prison. So when you were going through something that was being educated in food service, you actually got
Mm-hmm.
to go to food service. When you wanted to see what it was going to
Nice.
be like to work in a housing unit, you got to go in and actually work in a housing unit. It was a great academy, and the subsequent um, uh, prison that I went to work for after, I was received with open arms. Like I said, I just moved there from the
Yeah.
state of Texas. You have people there, you know as well as I do, from the feds. When you move, you're breaking into a group of people that have worked together for 25 years, so it's not necessarily immediately welcomed. But I will
Right.
say, in Florida, it was a brotherhood from the very beginning. Very, very, very good experience.
Cool. Yeah, when I opened up, I activated a prison, and one of the first things I did when we started bringing in all the new hires, we just grabbed the tables, and I said, "No, the housing units are empty. We're going to the housing unit. This is where we're going to hold class." You know, if we talk about a tray slot, there's a tray slot. If we talk about showers, there's the showers. You know, and I think that was one of the smartest things I did for those students was to start doing classes in a housing unit. So, if people can do that, that's a great idea. Florida's come
Yeah,
a long
yeah,
ways
that
while
academy.
you're. Go ahead.
Yeah, I loved it, and I thought that at that time I thought that was very trend setting as well, because the academy, and I said in Fort Worth, was basically a week. That was a real extensive academy. When you came out of there, you were prepared to be a professional correctional officer.
Yeah. And Florida's came a long ways. They were traditionally low paying for a long time, but I think DeSantis just upped it by 33%. They got a
Wow,
large pay raise last year, so good for
good for
them.
them.
Yeah. So, how long were you with Florida?
A couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to lie. My motivation. I love the profession, so I wasn't reluctant to move, and I followed the money. I went from
Yeah.
there to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. I believe it was a $10,000 increase. I was there a couple of years,
Yeah.
and then we used to hold our briefings in the basement, and I started noticing we're missing people. People are disappearing from the briefings, and I
Right.
was still relatively very young, and I started asking, where are these people going? And they were going to interviews at Coleman,
Mm,
the new complex that had opened up for the feds. So I did
absolutely.
my research and I applied. And that's actually where I did my first interview and where I did my first physical. And I wasn't savvy for the Bureau of Prisons, and I didn't realize when you filled out that bubble application, you really needed to turn it over, and on the back you could put down your preferences of location. So I did not put
Ah,
down a preference of location. Yes, so what they sent me back a letter 15 days later and said, "Congratulations, you're going to Raybrook, New York."
but well, that's the exact opposite of Florida.
Uh,
Wow.
uh,
So, yeah. Well, Raybrook's a nice place. I've known a couple of people that worked up there. So, how was your experience starting with the feds up there?
Again, I know I probably used the word too often. It was just amazing. It was a really, really good experience. Now, I will say that the coming in as a new officer, they were that most of those people had worked together their entire career, so
Yeah.
it requires you to kind of crack that code. But it was a great place to work. How can you not love getting up every morning in the middle of the Adirondack Mountains?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, as a rookie, and you already had some experience, so I'm always interested in this. You already had experience as a correctional officer.
Yes,
You
sir.
come in as a rookie. What things were better and what things could have been improved as far as what you were taught?
Well, I have to tell you that well, you know, is the Bureau of Prisons is a very predatory agency. They hire people that are previously trained. I think that's why their
Mm-hmm.
academy is kind of condensed. So a lot of
Right.
similarities. Most of us operate off of all the mandates from ACA anyway. So there are actually a lot of similarities. Um, they immediately put me in SHU, and I pretty much I stayed in
Right.
SHU for a significant period of time. And then I had a warden that basically took me under his wing and said, Artie, you've got 4 kids. In 3 years, you can't stay a CO for the rest of your career and make it. And that really stuck with me. He took an
Good for
interest in
him.
me. Yeah, and believe it or not, that same warden sent me a 3 by 5 handwritten congratulation for my rest of my career in the bureau every time I was promoted.
Wow. Now, I'm sure it did, but is that one of the people that made a impact on you and made you start studying leadership and stuff later on? Because that's a for him to notice that about a CO and be that involved in a CO had to make an impact. We need more of that.
Yeah, and it really did. I mean, I don't know if it was Warden Ron Wiley. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, and
Well,
you can cut it out if you have to.
absolutely.
But yeah, he was just a great guy and sincere. I mean, just a genuine person. And
Hmm.
I of course, like you said, you try to emulate. We all do. We try to emulate
Yeah.
those good things about people that come through our career and our life. And yeah, it was a good. As a matter of fact, I went from RHU there. I can't remember where he promoted me, but he gave me my first promotion and actually launched me for what ended up being a really good career, and also the
Hmm.
going into administration. And I did learn some qualities from him. He was not a large man, but anywhere he entered, anybody that had any interaction realized he had a commanding presence.
Right. Right. I don't think some of our leaders understand how much of an impact they can have. And when I worked for the state of Missouri, which I worked for 9 years, you didn't talk to the wardens that much. They were very distant. They were part of the administration, so I didn't see them. And then when I came, my first job was at Leavenworth, and Warden Booker was my first warden there, and he made such an impact on me with the way he treated people, that I think I did carry that through the rest of my career. And as a leader, I think you need to understand how much effect you have with those little things that you do for those COs, for the people just starting out, because that will last through their career. They will remember you and the things you do.
Yeah,
So,
as you had said on some of my quotes on LinkedIn, my big thing is you are what you do. People don't want to hear what you have to say. They want to see what you actually do every day. Are you going in? Are you visiting the cards? Are you visiting the briefings? Are you going to the housing units? Those things are important.
absolutely. So tell me about where'd you go from Raybrook and take me through your
Um,
career
it,
there.
it was I really hated to leave Raybrook. Raybrook was an amazing, like people say, it's a family. It really was a family.
Uh huh.
My kids were growing up there. It was a really great experience. But I actually left there and I went to the boot camp, the female boot camp in Bryan, Texas. I
Okay.
later was picked up to open a penitentiary in Victorville, California, which
Mm-hmm.
was a great experience. And
Yeah.
then from there, I again sent from there to activate another institution, an FCI in South Carolina, Williamsburg, South Carolina. And then
Hmm.
from there, I went to Devens, Massachusetts. In Devon, Massachusetts, I was vehemently against because it was a mental health prison, and that was way
Hmm.
outside of my my realm of expertise. Not
Yeah.
not really anything I'd ever been exposed to, and I had a warden again that was vehemently for me. You're going to go there. That's going to be an experience for you. And sometimes, like you just talked about, what's great about these wardens is they see things in you you don't see in yourself, and
Yeah.
and and what had happened is later I received, I think, 2 promotions while I was at Devon. So it was they they saw something that was going to be beneficial for me to be there, and it worked out. And then from there, I ended up going to Estill, South Carolina, and that's where I finished my career.
Okay. Yeah, at Devon's, I worked at Springfield, so I worked mental health down there
Yeah.
for 14 years. So that's a whole different part of corrections. You know, it's something that people don't understand, and I don't think the public understands how many mental health people we have serving time in our correctional facilities. There's no place for them to go a lot of times. And some of it's sad, some of it's needed, but you learn a lot working in mental health facilities.
Yeah,
So,
again, you have to defer to the people that see something in you, and I will say at that point in time, my kids were in high school,
hmm,
and you know how the bureau is. I had 2 opportunities actually to go from there to DC, and I couldn't. It's not that I couldn't take advantage. I made a family decision not to go there,
hmm,
because you only get one opportunity to raise your kids, and my 2 oldest kids were in high school, and I would have basically missed all of their after school activities, and it was just the right
yeah.
thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I did the same thing. I held in Springfield until my kids graduated, and then that's when I started taking promotions outside of there. But yeah, you're right. You only get one chance to raise your kids. You got more than one chance to promote usually. So,
Exactly.
well, so what was your which one did you have the most challenges at, or what were some of the challenges in those institutions that you worked at that you remember?
Um, I would say if on the leadership side of it, I would say Victorville and Williamsburg. You don't Nobody likes to admit that maybe they're tired or maybe it was exhausting, but activations, doing 2 activations back to back, I have to admit took a little wind out of my sail. But I'll tell you, it was a great experience because unless you're involved in the hiring, the training, and later supervising position, you just don't know.
Right.
And being and having done that at a U.S. penitentiary and then at FCI, it was a great learning experience, and I wouldn't have traded it for the world. But I have to admit, going through the process, it was exhausting. And
Uh,
and Victorville opened up
yeah.
off a riot in Lompoc, so it wasn't a scheduled opening like they normally take their
Mm.
time and place people in there in small amounts. It wasn't the same type of experience.
Right. Yeah, I can understand what you're talking about, but I will say that activation, what we don't realize sometimes is I learned as much for weeks and weeks and weeks. I taught rookies. It was the class after class, and I got to just give them everything I had, everything I'd learned for 20 years. But at the same time, I learned more in those few weeks than I think that's where this podcast came from. I think that's where some of the books I've written came from, is because I learned so much about myself and what I had done teaching others. And I think that's something people don't always notice, that when you get that chance, teach others. You're going to learn more about yourself than you will anything else.
Oh, I agree 100%. Even to date, the greatest accomplishment or achievement I would say that I've had in my career is and LinkedIn is a big part of it because I'm able to resurrect friendships from 30 years ago. But it's awesome to see
Hmm.
people that you worked with, some people that I coached and I trained, reach out to you, and they've far exceeded anything you've ever done.
Yeah.
And that's just an amazing experience. You really, I get a lot of joy from seeing people that that are now directors or assistant
Mm.
directors, or just and to talk to them now, especially the experiences you had with them then, when they may have been a GS5 or a GS7, or it's just amazing to see. Like you said, and for me personally, I get a lot of joy from it. It's great to see those people go on and do not only what you would have done, but far exceed that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you left, you retired from the bureau,
Yes,
and
sir.
then you went to South Carolina.
Yes, sir. I
Is that
worked
your next
for
step?
a jail at Allendale, which is their version of an FCI or a level two. It actually
Hmm.
was a true privilege to work on that yard because it was the strongest character yard in the state of South Carolina. But I also believe it had to have been one of the strongest in the United States. They had, I think, close to 200 volunteers, which is something I had never witnessed.
Wow.
And the entire yard was a character yard. Like it was an amazing experience. What had happened is I toured there as a Fed. I toured there teaching leadership. I took my leadership
Hmm.
class there. We went there twice. And I have to
Nope.
tell you, I thought it was fake. I thought that it was a performance the first time I went there. Uh, I had never seen anything like it in my life with what they were getting from the population. And the second
Hmm.
time that I went there, I said I'm going to do everything in my power to try to be part of this.
Wow. So character yard. Explain that for the
Um,
people.
the units the units have such a value to the inmates that they're I can't say easily managed, but the staying in that housing unit has a value to them. So even if inmates are coming in there that aren't conforming to um, what the belief system is there, they have mentors and liaisons. Um,
Hmm.
they kind of self-police, for the lack of
Right.
a better word. It was a great experience. I knew nothing about it. It was enjoyable. It was really I learned a lot. I learned probably,
Sure.
a career worth of information just being there because I was mostly my career has probably been half operations and half security, but that portion of my non-security was not strong, and I learned a lot.
Hmm.
It was a great experience.
Excellent. And it's good for them. I worked at a drug treatment program that was part of the Missouri Department of Corrections that did that, and they policed each other. You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't about. They taught them how to worry about their own self and what they did, but the other inmates would step in and say, "Hey, you know, you're not keeping up today," and remind them. And I saw it work. I did. It was something that we don't get much of that in prison. Sometimes we don't get to see those programs work all the times. So it's always refreshing when we see something that is working. So South Carolina, where'd you go then? I mean, next institution.
I'm currently at Broad River, and like I said, I it's a level three, which is a high security. Um, but what I'd have to say is it's really what we had talked about earlier. It's really for my age a privilege to be in the agency. This agency is really going the right way and really doing the right thing, um,
Hmm.
and that's and as far as the leadership from top down, it's nice to be where I'm at this point in my career and in my age.
Right. And I was going to bring up, I've gotten this off Corrections One, but you see a lot of articles about, like this one here, which just came out 2 days ago. New York City Corrections Department slashes officer training academy in half amid staffing woes. And we see a lot of that. But at the same time, South Carolina has kind of taken a different approach with your recruitment and your retention. You've actually expanded how long they're going to academy and up their pay quite a bit. Tell me about some of that.
Yeah, like I said, I can't take. I can speak from being here and being part of it, but
Hmm.
the administration, Director Mr. Sterling and Mr. Anderson, Deputy Director, their vision is working. To their vision,
Yeah.
like I said, having done this for 30 years and been part of 5 agencies, whatever the plan, whatever the strategic plan is that they had implemented, it's working. I've never been associated with anything where you lower the standard and things get better. So
No.
the lowering the academy time, I don't see would benefit anybody. But one of the things they've also implemented here is OJT. They have the officers come to the academy. I mean, come to the institutions while they're still
Hmm.
in the academy. And you know as well as I do, that's an amazing experience because a lot of times you don't know what that prison is going to be like until they give you the keys and you're there your first day. So
Right.
it's really good. They're definitely doing the right thing.
Hmm. Um, what do you think about the new age? 18 years old, but I know you guys are keeping them with an experienced officer, but what do you think about the age? You think people are ready for it at 18 years old? I started at 21, so I wasn't far off that.
Yeah, you and I are pretty much the same. I don't. My thing is, I think they do a very good job at the academy. I think that. I mean, for a lack of a better terminology, I think it would have to be a weeding out process.
Hmm.
Because not everybody. I'm also a firm believer not everybody should graduate. I mean, and that's my
Right.
personal opinion. I'm not speaking for the academy. I'm saying not everybody should graduate because this profession is not for everybody.
Yeah.
So I think they do. Matter of fact, I think I can speak that they do a really good job. We get the privilege of speaking there for graduation ceremonies periodically, and I always consider that a privilege.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I had a guest a few shows back who mentioned that his agency was looking at going to 18, and he wasn't for it. But then when I take a look at it, you can take a rifle and go to war at 18. You should be able to, with the right training, you should be able to work inside a correctional center. So,
Yeah, three
yeah.
of my five kids were Marines. I signed them over to the U.S. government at 17. So my thing is why not? If why not somebody else as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I spoke about when I introduced you that we didn't know each other while we worked at the bureau, but on LinkedIn, like you said, we get to keep up with people, and I get to meet new people, even though it is virtually. And you were one of the people that I was clicking through, and I was like, wow. And I started saving these little tidbits that you were putting out about leadership. And so I want to go through a couple of those and have you expand maybe a little bit on some of these and tell me your thoughts and where you got some of these experiences from, that
Sure.
guided some of these principles. And one of them, one of the first ones is if you are in a leadership position, it is your moral obligation to exhibit courage to your staff. If you don't have the tools, acquire them. Staff are our greatest, and they deserve good leadership. Talk to me about those tools and exhibiting courage, because I think those are two things that are big in corrections.
Well, yeah, and that doesn't come from accomplishing anything in front of somebody. Like when I speak of courage, is your people are looking to you to make a decision. They're looking you
Mm.
to take the forward leadership role, and you're obligated to do that for them. You're also obligated to look out for their best welfare, whether they're for it or not. But I would say cumulatively, from all the experiences, all the places that I've been, I try to pick up on the things that you've seen in people that has been very very positive, and things you've seen that weren't. And I would say that not having courage, and courage being to stand up in front of people. Sometimes you have to say what they have to hear, not what they want to hear. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think they respect that. The new word now is to be authentic, be authentic, be authentic.
Hmm.
Well, really, that should not be a new idea. Everybody can understand what you mean and what you say if you're speaking from your heart, if you're speaking for real, and they can adjust
Right.
accordingly. But you should never lie or hide something from your staff. You're never going to get that back should they find out that you were.
Yeah. And that goes for inmates too. Inmates can see
Oh,
through that if you're not authentic. Yeah. I've said it on
100%.
this
Like I said,
podcast. Go
you're
ahead.
exact, you're 100% right, and that's another thing with the academy training. Everybody should be telling them you need to be the best you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, these portrayal that we sometimes see on TV is misleading. Well, you be you, and the population will respect that.
Absolutely. So here's another one and this one's got a couple of pieces to it.
Yeah.
Basic principles to remember was something you posted. Share information, delegate as needed, because you're always training your replacement, and always be honest and authentic. Your staff will appreciate and be motivated by true leadership. And remember, it is a privilege. And I really like that last part. So you really feel like it's a privilege to be in these leadership positions. Tell me about that.
No, no, 100%, because these people are counting on you to provide them with the right information. They're basically a piece of clay that you're molding, and you're obligated to do the right thing. Um, I love going to work. I'll tell you, Mike, at the end of every briefing I attend, I tell them three things, and this has been for my entire career. I tell them I love them, I appreciate them, and I thank them for coming to work, because you should be saying that, because we're not talking a lot of the buzzwords are human capital or asset. You know what they are? They're people, and they're coming
Mm-hmm.
into work for you, and you're obligated to treat them right. You're obligated to give them the tools they need to do their job, whatever that might be. um,
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you, I really, like, again, I really enjoy the interaction with the people, but I do think that you're talking about, as far as the authenticity and treating them right, we have an obligation to do that. Yeah, let me hit on that. The sharing information. We've all worked for them. Like, some people are the information keepers. You know what I'm saying? My thing is, I've never been in a situation where you haven't sat down at a table and shared your information with five people and gotten a better answer. And I think
Yep.
and I think some of that is driven by ego. I hate to say it, but we're not looking for our best answer. We're looking for the best answer. You know what I'm saying? So, getting together and with your group and telling them, okay, here's our goal. Here's what the executive staff or we're looking to accomplish. How do you think we can get there? I've never sat that down at a table where with numerous officers and got a better idea from them than one I would have came up myself. 100%. It's always been the cumulative answer is better.
Sure, sure. I kind of had the same conversation with some other instructors not too long ago, and somebody I'd put together a PowerPoint, and they were like, "Oh, that's really cool." I said, "Well, give me your flash drive. I'll put it on there." And they were like, "You're just going to give it to me?" I'm like, "Yeah," because I remember the days. If you had a PowerPoint, you didn't let anybody else have it. But we got to
Oh yeah.
talking, I said, "It's about the student. It's not about me. If I can give you a good PowerPoint and then you can go give a good lecture or speak to the student and they get something from it, that's a win." And I've done that for years. I've given away everything that I've built. I'm fairly good on the computers, so PowerPoints and stuff. And I've always gotten more back from others who want to give back. "Hey, I remember that PowerPoint. Have you got this video? Have you got this?" And I've always gotten more back than what I ever gave. And I think that's something important to remember also.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. The sharing of that information. Nobody should be hoarding information. The more people you can give it to, the better we all are.
Yeah. So one of the things that everybody's dealing with these days is, you know, and I don't want to say the millennials and the Generation X because I hear these old heads and they're like, "Oh, these new kids, they won't listen, blah, blah, blah." And I really have a feeling in my heart that that is falling on the old heads. They're not doing enough to train. They're not trying hard enough. Because I have had millennials and Gen X in my classes, and they do a great job, and they can do a great job. But here was a quote that from one of your posts, and I thought this was good. "Training is important and definitely has an effect on retention and career-long elevation. But let's not forget that it starts with, is your agency or department legitimate? Can you sell what you're really doing to new staff? Do you do what you promise? This new generation has to see the match. As a profession, we lost a generation of trained staff in 2 years. That's everyone, city, county, state, and federal. There's simply no easy cure. How do we replace that talent and experience? Start the right way. Attend briefings, visit units, visit your academy, teach classes for new hires, hold honest meetings. We see the problem, and it is us. It is time for the great reset as a profession. Your staff have no idea how great this profession is unless you show them." And I think that's just amazing. Talk a little bit about that. I can tell you feel
Well, I'm,
strongly
I'm
there.
I really do. And my thing is because I'm a baby boomer. I'm the end of the baby boomers. But so I'm coming to work if you pay me. So
Mm-hmm.
we're talking with a whole different generation, and you can't fault them, because if you really, I don't study. I haven't studied Gen X or Gen Z or whatever, but I can tell you from practical applications, there's two things you're going to run into: the word why, right? And I don't begrudge them that. They're allowed to ask why. And the other thing
Sure.
is they want your actions to match your words. And we as like you're saying, using description, old heads, we can't be upset with the fact they want that to match. If you're telling people that we're promoting the most qualified, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're an officer and they're watching you, and you're all talking about retention, retention, retention. We need retention. We need to focus on retention. And the people you might be promoting, whatever agency, whatever state you're in, don't resemble what you're telling them. You can't be upset that they're upset, because that's the big thing with this generation. They want what you say you're going to do to match what you're doing. And really, we have a great opportunity. They don't lack work. They'll work for you, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to say things that they believe, and then you have to go through. You have to fulfill your promises of what you told them. You'll get buy-in from them. That's not a problem. And the problem is we we lost a generation of experience, so they don't really know how great the camaraderie can be. They really don't know how
Mm-hmm.
great the experience can be. We are obligated to show them and tell them, educate them on how great this profession is. It's an amazing profession, but they don't know. They only know if they're hearing bad stuff every day. It's your job to prove to them what it really exists, what the job really is, because we all know, if people have been in, it's an amazing opportunity. It's a great career, but these kids are being programmed based off of what they hear and they see. I'm not saying from people that are there that are not happy, but you have the opportunity to show them what you experience, to impart your feelings and what you've
Mm-hmm.
went through on them. And we really need to do that. We can't complain. We've got to be proactive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this generation is also more susceptible. I think you used to have some old guys who did their own thing and they would sit in the corner and ignore a lot of stuff. But I think how we walk into our institution, I talked about this in the last episode, carries a lot of weight with this generation. If you walk in a bad mood, you can tell them
Yes.
things are good all you want. But if you're walking in kicking the trash can, you're going to bring them down quicker than I think you did maybe the generations before. Same principle. If you walk in positive, if you're walking in, promoting change and making things better, they're going to jump in behind you because that's what they want. And I think our leadership can take a look at some of that and look at how, and it's easy for all of us to come in for the bad day, but for 8 hours, you got to come in and you got to be there for the others that work with you, I think. So,
Well, I agree, and what I would like to say, Mike, is I believe a lot of it is top down. It really is. Your
hmm
what we're saying even to our here's another point. I believe that the people that attend CLIA and the people that attend these ACA conferences right now are doing an amazing job with what they have. The problem is 15 years ago they didn't have the focus on retention.
hmm
I think our goal right now, I mean everybody's retention, 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 and we're doing the right thing. The problem, that isn't the problem. They're going to reap the rewards from what they're doing now, but it might be 3, 5, 10 years from now, from right now. The problem is 15 years ago we hired people that were command and control and not focused on retention. So
mm,
that's where the rub is with this new generation. Your
yeah.
my local leadership might not be resonating what we're saying we're for now, but
hmm
really that was a 15 or 10 year ago hiring problem, not a right now problem.
Right, right. And with the retention, and much like South Carolina's doing, I was involved with a roundtable with Corrections One, and that's what I said at the beginning of the year was training equals retention for this new generation. You might be able to keep one of these 15, 20-year guys with a monetary bonus right now. Hey, we'll give you 3% if you stay another year. That works for those guys that are invested. It's not working for the people who are brand new in here. They want training. They want to know that they're growing. They want to know that there's something ahead of where they're at now. I don't think you're going to find too many. And I remember, and there's nothing wrong with it, I remember the GS8s for life in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. It's all I ever want to be. I don't think you see that as much now with this generation. I think they're always looking for the next leadership experience.
Yeah, Mike, I can tell you when I was involved in the processing at Victorville, there had to be 5 department heads to process new staff members in for the interview
Mm-hmm.
process, and they basically had the same 3 questions. It was, how, let me remember exactly their concerns. They weren't interested in a pension.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't see themselves there in 5 years, but they did want your job.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say it, I thought they were in the parking lot handing that piece of paper around. We had to hire 600 people, and I would say a majority of the people that came in all had those 3 things were their focus.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Hey, I skipped past this earlier, but I want to talk about it.
Good.
It says you're a graduate of NIC's Leadership and Development for the Future. Talk to me about that.
Yes, sir. That was I took that class in I believe it was 92 or 93. No, 2001 or 2003. I'm sorry. It was 2000.
Okay.
It was 2001 or 2002. I'm sorry. And it was great. I took it when you had to travel to Aurora, Colorado,
Okay.
and it was taught there. It was a chief psychologist and it was 2 professors. It was anyway. It was a great class. And again, that was they were explaining to you that what had happened is the bureau had grown. The bureau had grown and opened up a bunch of prisons, and
Mm-hmm.
what they noticed was the pool of people that were backfilling these positions were not the same as the initial group that they had, and they realized they had a problem. And so they started making everybody was potentially a future AW or warden or attend this course, and it was 18 months long. And we flew out to Colorado every 3 months. But it was a great course. It explained to you what type of learner you were, what if you were
Mm-hmm.
a visual learner, if you it broke down what what you were what you were good at as well as what you were not what you were failing at as far as moving up that leadership pyramid. It stretched me. It was like a grad studies course for me. I'm not going to lie. It was and then we had a project at the end. The project I was involved with had to do with improving classification, again
Mm-hmm.
outside of my wheelhouse. But it was a really, really good course. The objective of it though was how to use your positive side to affect your sphere of influence. I think is how they worded it, and I loved
Okay.
it. It was really now it was years after that before I got. I also did was part of another thing with the Bureau of Prisons was I'm trying to think the excellence. It was correctional excellence. They had
Mm-hmm.
a similar to what you and I are doing, a podcast, which was a intranet. It ran on our intranet
Mm-hmm.
for the bureau, but both were very similar. They're trying to use the positive side of what we did to move forward, and it was good. I use probably stuff from that class now more than I ever have really.
Cool. Yeah. And what about this Warden Exchange program? When did
That
you
that
do
was
that,
that was
and what did you get from that?
a now that was recently. Now that was probably last year. My warden had to pick cohorts, and it was a privilege to be included in that. That was a really good course, and that was uh, a lot about what we just went over on the LinkedIn. It's about
Mm-hmm.
improving your staffing, how people perceive the job in order to get the same type of feeling from the population. Good officers create a good environment, create a good prison, and it was really good. It was a lot of eye-opening stuff. I really enjoyed it. It was good. Now I could have used that when I was at Allendale because Allendale actually what they talked about was that type of practical application, having the positive reinforcement from the officers help the positive reinforcement from the men that were incarcerated.
Excellent. So did you actually go somewhere, or did a bunch of wardens get together for that?
A bunch of wardens got together, and we got to attend via this, just like this. It was
Okay.
it was
Okay.
like a Zoom meeting.
Excellent.
It was a challenging. It was good. I enjoyed it.
Good. Good. So what have you got going now? What's coming up? What are you working on? Anything new?
Not no. Like I said, we're all pretty much buying in. The SEDC just recently hired Mr. Antonelli from the Bureau of Prisons as a prison director.
Absolutely.
We're there's
Good
just
man.
yeah, there's just a lot of a great guy. There's just a lot of positivity around what's going on at SCDC, and it's good. It's good to be on board. I enjoy where I'm at. I enjoy the team. You know as well as I do. I commute over almost 2 hours one way to get to work
Oh,
each
wow.
day. And
Yeah.
I do that just to be part of the team. It's a great opportunity, and it also has to do with my age and time in corrections. I had a warden tell me years ago, sometimes you're either going to get the job you want or location you want. It's very odd you're going to get both.
Yeah. I could believe. Yeah, that's held true. That's held true over the years.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, so I'm just going to say, if you haven't followed Warden Fredericks on LinkedIn, he puts out a lot of motivational stuff. I'm going to keep looking, and I'm going to keep stealing your little stuff and putting it on a note on my computer to keep me motivated. But I thank you so much for your leadership, and I don't work with you specifically, but I still get that leadership and that motivation just from listening to you on LinkedIn. So thank you for being on the podcast, and anything else you want to leave us with?
Really, the only thing I would say is that the one thing that means a lot to me, if I could push it down, is make sure you care. That's probably the most important thing I would say as far as a future leader or whatever. Make sure you care. That comes out. It resonates with your staff. It resonates with the executive staff. Resonates with the agency. You need to come in there every day and care about the people that work for you. They're extremely important, and we owe it to them. But other than that, if you're thinking about corrections, please think hard. It's a great profession. It's a respectable profession, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being on here. Have a great day.
Thank you.